Hi everyone, and welcome to this last week of the online workshop. So congratulations once again for all of your hard work, and very good work actually. And by now you have seen what was the aim of the Category 2 workshop, which was how to deliver the MYP curriculum. And it's not as easy. Often we are focusing on assessment. We are using assessment, but we are more focused on how to include authentic and meaningful assessment than on how to evaluate with the rubrics, which would be more done within a Category 3 workshop. But still, it's the heart of the IB. We might read the IB philosophy and guidelines and standards and practices, but how do we take that and live it day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis in class? So that was the aim of that workshop, actually. So if I go back to the document, which was called What is an IB Education, we've seen that we've talked a lot about international mindedness, global context, interdisciplinary, connected, interdisciplinary learning, service as action. So we've seen all of that. Everything which develops the IB learner profile, and we have also a part which is approaches to teaching and learning. So I just want to recall that part. So in the approaches to teaching, because when we will plan in Module 4 our teaching and activities and teaching strategies, we have to make sure that that is included when we plan it. And if I were to visit your school and to go visit classes, I would expect these things to be done within the classroom. Not all the time, but I should see some of that most of the time. So it's based on inquiry. So within the unit, perhaps not on all the time, as I said, but plan a few times within the unit where you will ask questions in order for the students to be inquirers. Often we let them think by their own, and then we ask them to collaborate, because it is another thing which we want to see. We want to see teamwork and collaboration. When you plan projects or doing authentic assessments, sometimes you let students being in teams, and then you see them collaborate, and we are following the guidelines. So we want to make sure that we plan a few activities based on inquiry, and these are the ones that we are going to write. I will not ask you to write everything that we would teach, like let's say for 15 hours in your unit, but I would ask you to write everything which is linked to the IB within like the box. So that is the activities which are based into inquiry. So think about like questions which will make the students like think and understand that they might not know everything, and they might debate, they might learn, and they will be really ready to learn because they will have done that. You have to make sure that there are collaboration. We have to make sure that you have a few times where you just refer to your global context or local context, for the teaching to be anchored into something which is more linked to real life. Focus on conceptual understanding. Remember that the point of that is to be able to be transferred, learning to be transferred within mathematics and also with the other subjects. So we have to make sure that what we learn is not something that is not just following a recipe given by the teacher, but it's a lot based on trying to develop the autonomy and being able to understand like the process in order for students to be able to transfer their learning in new context. And if we think about criterion A, we have to be able to do it in the unfamiliar situation in mathematics, to criterion D, where we apply it to real life, and also to interdisciplinary project, where we have to use mathematics within another project or activities, because we have also to plan things where we would talk about like other subjects and try to see how mathematics can be used. So it's all really important things that you have to consider when you're building your unit plan. Removing barriers to learning, it's something which we'll focus about also in Module 4, and informed by assessment. We've talked about that in Module 3, is to be able to understand that we have to provide feedback, and that assessing is not the end, it's process. Okay, we want to measure learning, but also to through the assessment, make sure that the students continue to learn. The approaches to learning as well, I want just to remind you, these are the skills that we want to develop for the students, and this is another thing which we have to see in Module 4. Okay, so it's trying to make like everything like glued together, like fit together, in order for it to be relevant. So going back to Module 4 activities, for the first one, we'll go back to a part which we skipped, is the inquiry questions. So questions can be in 3 places. If you've seen the module notes, it can be in all of 3 sections of the unit plan, but we'll focus on the first 2, okay, within that activity. So the questions focus on the concept and on the global context explorations of the SOI. Don't focus on the SOI. Goes in the inquiry, establishing the purpose of the unit, inquiry questions of the unit plan. They're not specific to mathematics because we want to foster interdisciplinary learning. So if I go back to your unit plan, on the first page, the inquiry questions here, at least one factual, one conceptual, one debatable question would be based on the SOI, which is itself based on the concepts and global context explorations. So, and the type of question that you ask, factual is the what, conceptual is more on the how and the why, and debatable is pretty much like is it, should we, whatever. Okay, I think that is easily understood by teachers, but make sure that the conceptual question would be focused more on the how we can like do things, and the factual is the what is it. Okay, and that will go great. So that's the first thing. For the second type of questions that you have to think about is content related questions. So here you'll be pretty much happy to put mathematics topics and skills. Of course, within inquiry, that's what I said just before, is that we have to plan a few times within our unit where we will, let's say, teach mathematics, but through inquiry. And these questions will go in one of 2 places in the action section. I'm just going to show it to you right now. Now, in the action section, either on the content or the learning experiences and teaching strategies. Because I know that well, the guidelines often, the 2 types are good. You can ask the questions and then the answer, but the answer would be here inquiry based. Okay, I don't know if you understand. So we'll ask questions and then answer questions, but I prefer personally like putting the questions here, like on left, and then I state the content, ask questions. So that reminds me to use inquiry more often. So that's my strategy actually, but either way, it's okay. And then what we'll do in Module 4 is the formative assessment. How can we assess that? And the differentiation, which is a big part of what we are going to do in Module 4. So we're really focusing on that part. So the inquiry questions, of course, but that. And the other thing that we're going to do also in Module 4 is here the approaches to learning, which we've skipped as well. Okay? The resources and the reflection part, you can do it afterward on your own. And here in the prior to teaching the unit, of course, you would ask yourself questions. That's like the third part, okay, about what you expect. But it's not what we do now. So I remind you, questions based, of course, on the SOI, but within which you put mathematics would go either here or here in the action section. And the way it's done with the columns now is like to ask questions, you do the answer, and you put everything in line so that it makes sense. So how do we differentiate that activity? How do we evaluate formatively that activity? So everything is in line, so it makes a lot more sense than what it used to be. So there is a template. I don't know if I like it or not, but it exists. The template is right here. Thing is to think about it also and to ask questions. I do it like naturally, like just reading back my concepts and global context explorations. And also then using the topics, try to ask questions. So you can use or not that template. You can hand in or not that template, or directly like put your questions within the unit plan and like attach your unit plan to your reply, which is perfectly okay for me. And perhaps it goes a little bit faster. So that's your choice. I've given resources here. Learning engagement 2, approaches to learning, very important. It refers to the appendix 1 here, which is in page 107, but perhaps it's 108, and then you have all of these categories, skill categories, skill clusters, and then you have here skill indicators. So we have to identify, let's say, that skill category is social, skill clusters, collaboration skill, and skill indicator, let's say, that we would have help others to succeed. So we have to identify that, and then we have to think what can we learn in 2 ways. One of it explicitly activity, like an explicit activity, like to learn that, and an implicit activity. So we have to plan both of this. This is like the, let's say, once again, the template, if I may say. So in the approaches to learning section, we would write, in order for students to, and then we use our objective strength, let's say the CII, okay, of our criterion. Student must, and then we put in the skill indicator, and then we identify skill category and cluster and everything. So that's what goes, let's say, here. And the actual activity, which is explicit or implicit, would actually go here in the learning experiences and teaching strategies. So here is either inquiry-based, or it's also used for the approaches learning activities. Okay, make sure that both of these things are there. Of course, we could add like more traditional teaching strategies and everything else around it, but it is not my point, like within the workshop. I would plan everything which is IB for now, and then you can add from years to years. And of course, remember that it might not be perfect for the first year, but we are trying to develop it. Okay, so that's the point of that activity. So what you have to do actually here, aside from the feedback, is to identify one skill indicator. You can use more, but one is what is asked, and to try to plan an explicit and implicit activity. I see time passes. Differentiation and inclusion forum. You are in team, you are thinking about the scenario, all of you, but the document here, which is meeting student learning diversity into the classroom, is a really good document made from the IB, which can help you a lot perhaps with that. So I'm giving it to you in the and that will help in planning here differentiation part. Okay, so everything goes there. So we have to try to find a way in order to verify if the students have difficulties, and then to plan differentiation, to cope with the difficulties. In the learning engagement 4, then it's like trying to write everything formally within the unit plan. So, and at the end, you share your unit plan using the advanced button. So at that point, you copy paste everything if it has not been done before, and it is resources. Your unit plan is a resource that you can use, like using, if you are 12, we should have 12 unit plans at the end shared. So I don't want to take more time, and also always refer to evaluating MYP unit plans in order to try to make it better, of course. What else? I would say that in the conclusion section, in a few seconds, you just have to do a final reflection, and 15 minutes is going to be the end. So have a good summer, everyone, and I